Good afternoon. Hi, everyone. It's 12:30 sharp here in Mexico. And I want to thank you again for being with us, for joining us to another very exciting webinar in which I'm pretty sure you're going to learn. My name is Abdel Jacobo. I'm the academic specialist for the University of Dayton Publishing in Mexico for Grupo SM. So it is a pleasure and honor to have you here. So today we're going to talk about technology using smartphones in the classroom. So I think we are all going to learn to have options and different strategies in order to use technology, because right now technology is a must, right? So let me introduce our speaker, Abraham Ruiz. I'm going to read his information. Okay, so we all will know who he is. So let me introduce Abraham. Abraham is a teacher with more than 10 years of experience. He is a co-founder of Programa de Idiomas, which is a language school in Sayula, Jalisco, Mexico, that also creates online courses. Abraham has worked as a language consultant for the British Council, Certeca, University of Dayton Publishing, and also he is a private and public teacher trainer around the country. He worked for the University of Guadalajara as an instructional designer for a virtual campus. Abraham is also working for Secretaría de Educación Pública in Mexico as an English teacher in a public secondary school. He holds a BA in Financial Management and a BA in Teaching English as a Foreign Language. Currently, he's studying a master's degree in Learning Technologies at Universidad de Guadalajara, Campus Ciudad Guzman, with a research project on the evaluation of the use of mobile devices as a tool in a public secondary school. So thank you, Abraham, for being with us again and for sharing your knowledge and expertise regarding technology, which is something very important today. So thank you again for everyone out there. So Abraham, whenever you're ready, you can share with us.
Thank you, Ben, for the presentation, and thank you, everyone. Okay, and thank you, everyone, for being here. I hope we can all learn from this session today, right? Okay, let me start. Let me open my presentation. Done. Okay. I hope everyone can see my presentation. Okay, so today's topic is about using smartphones in the classroom. So let's begin. Okay. So first of all, let's review a little bit more about using not only the smartphones but also all kind of devices in the classroom. So let's start for the quote of today. So says the quote of the day is, according to Charles Darwin, says, "It is not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change." I don't know if you agree, teachers, but nowadays the only chances that we have, especially now that we have this pandemia event today, that we are forced to work online. The idea now as a teachers is how can we respond to change, right? And we have to be more effective and more like faster in order to adapt to new changes. Okay, so today's topic, first of all, we're gonna see what is M-learning, the two models and the potentials of M-learning, important considerations to take into consideration, obviously, when you're applying the use of devices on a class. Also, we're going to see best practices and we're going to check some cases. So the idea is that we all can interact. So maybe I don't know, I mean, I don't know everything, right? But the idea is to share our knowledge, right? Perhaps I can give you an idea, a clue, a tip, and the majority of the teachers who are here taking this webinar so can share also their own experiences, their frustrations, or all of the problems, so we can like working all together. Also, we're going to check about platforms, how to evaluate an app and platforms, and we're going to check just in details like about some apps that I have used, so I can share you my experience with that, and also the devices features. Okay, so let's begin. So our objective today is at the end of this webinar, participants will be able to identify what M-learning is, as well as some useful ideas that can be applied in their own classrooms. Um, so first of all, we have to check what is M-learning. Okay, according to experts, mobile learning, also known as M-learning, is a new way to access learning content using mobiles. So mobile learning supports with the help of mobile devices. So continuous access to the learning process. This can be done with using devices like your phone, laptops, or tablets. This is not only using your cell phones, it's also using tablets or uh, laptops as well. Now, we have to take into consideration, sorry, when we're talking about M-learning, we have two models, okay? So the first one is one-to-one. What is one-to-one program? So through which all students are supplied with their own device at no cost to the learners or their families. The goal of one-to-one is to supply every learner with his or her own mobile device. Could be a laptop, computer, tablet, or smartphone. This could apply, for example, in public schools in which government invest in devices for students. So we're gonna see, like, for example, that we have some benefits. And on the contrary, we have like some issues or some problems that we can face with that. And the second one is the BYOD. So this model known as BYOD is bring your own device. It's already causing a major shift in higher education and distance learning by allowing more students to access course materials via mobile technology. So BYOD moves to the hardware cost from the school to the learner. Okay, let's talk about these two models, okay? In the first one, in the one-to-one, we have seen that it's really effective. I mean, in order that all of your students will have the same kind of device, so you won't have any problems with that. You know that if you're working with an app or a platform, all of your students can do it, right? What is the main problem here is it's highly cost. Um, Also, remember that devices normally they get really fast in their obsolete effects, right? So, for example, you have a cell phone, you buy a new one, and in 6 months, 1 year, I mean, there is a new cell phone, or there is a new software. So your cell phone in 2 years probably is gonna be like kind of obsolete. So some of the apps cannot work, or maybe it's going to get like a little bit slower your own device. In the other part, we have the BYOD, so bring your own device. So this one relies that instead of schools or governments investing on students' devices, the idea is that each one of your students are going to bring their own devices, which allows you like it's lower cost, so it's easier. Normally they have like newer cell phones. The only problem that you have, obviously, is that you're gonna face that all of your students are going to have different devices. So you have to take into consideration that, right? For example, some of them will have iOS, or some of them are going to use Android, or maybe another kind of software. So this is kind of like is going to have like a little bit problems with that, right? Now, saying this, right? So we're gonna see that, for example, we have a potential on mobile learning, right? The idea is that uh, you have these two models and to take into consideration, and also checking what kind of model are you going to work with, right? Um, Also, we're going to see, for example, some information that I brought to you, right? So it says, according to the World Bank, so it says, policies and plans related to the use of current generation of electronic mobile devices are sometimes considered in ways distant or divorced from the way the previous generation of mobile devices was used in education. So we have this main issue, right? According to Cisco, one of the tech high company, says technology has changed our world in ways previously unimaginable, right? I mean, we cannot think about how the world has changed now with the smartphones. I mean, with the computers change, now with the smartphones is going to be the next revolution, right? So it says mobile devices permeate our daily lives, providing unparalleled access to communication and information. According to the Inter-American Development Bank, there has no significant increase on the technology budget for schools in the last 20 years. So here's why the one-to-one model, I mean, it's kind of like difficult to work, right? Because according to the Inter-American Development Bank, the majority of the governments, I mean, there is no increase with the budget. So you will see they don't spend a lot of money in technology in schools. Looking towards the next decade and beyond, it seems clear that the future of mobile learning lies in a world where technology is more accessible, affordable, and connected than it is today, according to the UNESCO, right? Also, we have to be aware, right? We're working with centennials, or the majority of us, right? What are centennials? Well, these kids want more control. They finding their own ways to get things done with the tools at their disposal, right? So they want to have control. I don't know if you have kids in your houses, but you will see. I mean, probably you have a smart TV and you have an iPad. So you will see that your kids they rather watch cartoons, for example, in their iPads or the tablets instead of the smart TVs, right? Even the smart TVs have like bigger speakers, a bigger screen. They like to have the control, right? So you see the potential that this generation will have towards the use of mobile phones. Also, in my research that I'm doing, I have the conclusion that most of the kids' only access to internet and social media is through smartphones and tablets, right? I mean, nowadays computers for them are like old-fashioned thing. For example, like 6 years ago, I was working in a private school, so the only access that I have with my students was through an email. But for them nowadays, I mean, an email is for them is like really obsolete way to interact. So we have to take into consideration that, right? How can we interact with our students? So the only the only way is through their own devices, especially nowadays, the smartphones. Okay. Um, we're gonna read your comments in a moment, but let's check. I would like you to check this video. I hope you can see it. Probably you have seen it in YouTube. It's an ad, but it's really interesting. I mean, check the video if you haven't seen it, and pay attention to the last part of the video. Okay. Perfect. Okay, let me go to the chat. So hold on. Mhm. Okay, so one says that we have this video in Spanish. Okay, we'll check. Okay, hold on. Published. Okay, couldn't be more agree with you about the email. It's obsolete for me. Yes, obviously, Karina, right? I mean, nowadays for them and for us, I mean, 20 years ago was like huge step, right? We don't have to use letters or telegrams. I mean, I didn't use any telegram, but for us, we're like used to use the postal service. Nowadays, I mean, with just a click, we have a connection with everyone, right? Uh-huh. hmm Hold on, let's see. Greens from Ecuador, thank you. Okay, let me check if we have. Okay. Okay. So, what is your opinion about it, right? So, what's what did you see in the video, right? I mean, when the first time that when I saw this video, it was kind of like uh, shocking and hilarious at the same time. When the mom says, right, what are you doing in your computer? And the kid was like, what's a computer? And you see that, for example, the companies like Apple, Samsung, and some others, like they invest a lot of effort and money on smartphones and tablets because they see that nowadays computers are going to be like something in the past. For example, nowadays, I don't know how many of you have like a desktop computer, like just a few, right? Like in the past was like everyone has like a desktop computer, and to have a laptop was like impossible, right? They were really expensive, really hard to obtain, and the prices were like super like we have like a really gap, right? Like we have only like really expensive laptops. So to have like a computer from I don't know, like $200, it was like difficult to imagine. So nowadays, for example, laptop computers are really accessible, but now I mean you have seen that your kids don't access to any information on the internet or social media. Their only access is through mobile devices like smartphones, as we said, and also as tablets. hmm So let me answer. You can find this video on YouTube. Just type iPad Pro. Yes. Sorry, what do we do when the students do not have access to technology? We're gonna see that. Uh, well, you don't have the name. We will see that. But how can we use when students don't have access to technology? You will see that they do. I mean, they do have access to technology, or the majority. Obviously, there are like some families that they don't allow kids to have access to this technology. But my recommendation is through the year. I mean, when you have like parents sessions with them, I mean, talk about this part about like the benefits of using technology. Like, for example, 2 months ago we have a teachers meeting, and there was a teacher who was complaining. He was like the sports teacher, and he said, "Why do you punish your kids with sports? I mean, if they're good at sports, don't punish them with sports. I mean, use another thing, right?" So with technology, it's kind of difficult, I know, but the idea is like try to motivate parents. Like, don't reject technology, but also you have to take into consideration all the implications that the using devices for, especially for minors, right, have, right? And also like think about, like, let them think about all the opportunities their kids are going to have if they have any device at home. Mhm. Use devices. Yes, the younger generations use devices for the most of their activities. Yes, how many time the kids should spend on the phones? Sorry. Yes, right. How many kids should spend on the phones? In that, I will say that you have to set rules and you have to set time, not only as a teacher, also as a parent. I use it with my kids. I mean, for example, they have a schedule. So if they want to use the iPad, they have some responsibilities to take to finish them in order to have the iPad or the cell phone. Um, can you send the video link? Okay, I will send it. Let me check if I put it on YouTube. You will see it on YouTube. It's iPad Pro, and check what's a computer. Nifty says from Spain. No? Very good. Okay, let's continue. And I have a question for you, and I would like you to participate with this one. Sorry. So, what's your opinion about using mobiles inside the classroom? So, what has been your experience with that issue? I mean, is it good? Is it bad? I mean, remember, mobile devices in the classroom uh, have like these two sides, right? Could be very positive, but also could be very negative. But the idea is to work on the positive, but take into consideration the negative part, right? So let me check the chat. Sorry. So any ideas about this one? Children know more about technology than adult people. I agree. Yes. What about students without internet? We will see that, Elizabeth. We're gonna talk about later on. Eugenia says kids use cell phones, but not all of them have ones. What can we do? Yes. In that case, we're gonna see it later, but just let me give you like a recommendation. You can have like teamwork. I know, for example, that I work, for example, I work in a public school and I work not in a city. So where I live, it's a really small town. So yes, not all of my students have mobile devices. What I do is when I lesson plan the activities, I took that into consideration, right? Like how many of my students have access to cell phones? Do they have permission to use them? Do they have permission to bring them to school? And now when I have the information of the number of devices, now I lesson plan about it, right? So if I have 40 students and I have 20 cell phones, so probably I can work with two students for one device. So I mean, it's not only like they work alone, like a future classroom where everyone has like their own devices, but take into consideration like what kind of assignment are you going to plan for their students, and how can you get your students to work together, right? So probably you can check about cooperative learning and collaborative learning, right, as well. Let me check. Congratulations, thank you. Nowadays, technology is very important and useful in the classroom. Yes. Like, for example, like when I was 17 years old, a long time ago, I remember I was studying computer science and like all courses that I took. But I'm talking about that was a time when we had only DOS, right? And Windows was like we had the version 3.1, so we have to use floppy diskettes. I don't know if you remember that. Whew, long time ago. And I remember I saw the potential of that. I mean, I saw the future. And when I discussed this one with, for example, with a friend who was a DJ at that time, he was like, "No, come on, I won't need a computer. I mean, I'm a DJ. I have my CDs. I have my music. It's impossible that technology is going to replace us." And nowadays, I mean, technology hasn't replaced DJs, but nowadays you cannot imagine someone in the music industry without using technology. You cannot think about an architect or an engineer working without computers. Let's face it, I mean, as a teachers, we cannot think the world without technology. Using a projector, speakers, have your own laptop, or using your smartphone. I mean, we have tons of technology that we have nowadays. What is the right device for each age? We have to take that check that. For example, if you're working with teens, I mean, you can use anything. But if you're working with elementary kids or kindergarten, we have to take into consideration that, right? I mean, in that you have to talk with the parents, right? And also, like, probably this is going to be a little bit more difficult to work with them, but it's not impossible. And you will see that they use technology without any problem. Okay, thank you. You shared the video. Thank you, Tanya. So technology for this situation is great because now is the only way to communicate. Yes, but if the parents don't have control about it, a little dangerous for kids. Yes, it can be, right? If my students don't understand about technology, how can I help them? Because some of them live in rural areas. Yes, I work with that students. My recommendation, you will see that later on, is that you have to have like sessions. I mean, previous sessions to teach your students how to use technology, right? Because the way they use technology, they use it without any idea that they can use technology as a tool for education or for learning, right? So you have to create sessions where students have to learn how to use the smartphones, especially for their own projects or any assignment that you have for them. Why don't we ask the games developers to create educational games to play in virtual reality? Okay, we will see that. Well, we're using WhatsApp to be connected with our students because it is the most common. Yes, I agree with you. It can be very risky, especially when you're working with minors. In my case, if I'm working in a school where they don't allow teachers to have access with students through WhatsApp, what I use is I have parents' WhatsApp groups or I have my own personal blog. So my students have access to readings, materials for them to prepare for the exams, etc., etc. I didn't do it because my school doesn't allow. I'm teaching high school. Yes, we face that problem. I mean, like 2 years ago, I remember in the two schools that I was working them with them, I had that issue. Like I have one school that it allows me to use any technology that I want. So I was like really happy. And there was another school that doesn't allow any technology, right? So I struggle a lot, but nowadays I have a new principal, so I see that I mean, as a teachers, also you have to work with your coordinators and your principals, like convince them, present your projects. We're gonna see that later on. Using mobile inside the classroom may be important in the university because they need to learn better. Yes, but not only at the university. You will see that. It's good, but as you mentioned, we need to set rules. Yes, we will see that. How to deal with students who get disconnected from the class due to device. We're gonna see that in a moment. At the moment, we're creating WhatsApp groups with parents to reach at least 60% of them. Yes, they have. Yes, that will be a chaos. Yes, but we have some ideas about it, okay? So because it makes, yes, using mobiles in the classroom, says Eli Ramirez. using mobiles in the classroom has helped me a lot in the circumstances because it makes me be more in contact with students. Yes, totally agree. If you have that connection with your students, they see you in a different way. Believe me. I mean, you don't have to be like the wise teacher, but as long as they see that you're using the same apps and the same technology that they are using, they have like some kind of connection that's really like uh, has that helps you to have like a connection with them. What's my name? Abraham Ruiz. I think it was in the part in the beginning. Just a part of the class will have activities by technological device. Don't forget the rest of the elements of the class. Yes, remember, smartphones are not going. I mean, not only smartphones. I mean, think about technology. Technology is at this moment is not going to replace us, right? I mean, you still have to take into consideration the human part, the human element, especially because we have students. I mean, we don't have robots, but you have to think about how can you how technology help us to interact more with the students, because students, I mean, for example, some teacher says, oh, my students don't learn. It's not that they don't learn books, probably, but they still, I mean, sorry, my students don't read books. Yes, but that doesn't mean that they don't read. For example, they know how to read posts on Facebook. They know how to read instructions when they have to use like a video game. So you have to think about in how can we approach those students, right? Maybe we have to ask for permission to for the principal. Yes, always. Parents groups are more dangerous than students themselves. Sometimes nifty, but we will see that later on. I work in a public university. Okay, okay. Let me continue so we can. What happen if they don't have that connection? I don't know what do you say, Carminia? What kind of connection? We have to find connection between teacher and students. Yes. What about the reality of your students? Is not everyone has the possibility to have a smartphone. We're going to see that. Use technology is a good idea, but how can we use it to improve students' oral production? We're going to see that later on. Okay. Sorry, there's no audio. Internet is a big problem. Yes, internet it's still a big problem, but we're going to see how to work with that. Okay. Now, let's continue because time is money. Sorry. So now, like you said, how can we have to take into consideration important issues, right? Before using the mobile devices, we have to do all the learners have mobile devices like Nefty and other teachers comment, right? Do all the my teachers have internet connection? So can we have all access? So in order to like take into consideration, so I have to lesson plan. Wi-Fi connection. I mean, is it strong enough? And where in the school can I have more? Can I have more like stronger connection with my Wi-Fi? Is Wi-Fi free and available in class? I mean, we have to take into consideration that. Also, really, really important, teachers. I mean, these important considerations that I'm presenting here are the things that I have faced. So one thing that you have to take into consideration is data storage. Okay, why? Because some, I will say, like around 23% of your students are going to use cell phones that they have like really, really short data storage, right? So if you're going to use apps, so you have to take that into consideration. I mean, that's why you have to have previous sessions. So you have to work with their own devices, right? So my recommendation, learn. I mean, video tutorials are really amazing. Mobile applications, access and permissions, right? So if you're going to use a mobile application, right, you have to consideration the access that your students are going to have and the permissions, right? You will see that because we have like I'm going to show you some apps that I use. Privacy and appropriacy, right? So you have to take that really as an important thing because all of the materials that your students are going to create, you have to let them, I mean, you have to work with them. I mean, if your students agree that you can show that material to the rest of the class, it's fine. But you have to like ask your students about it, right? Because some of your students are really shy, so they don't want to show, for example, a personal video. So check that before, right? Variety of devices. Do learners and teachers understand how their mobile device work? So you have to work with that. I mean, before to apply that or using the smartphones in the class, you have to know that, I don't know, if, I mean, not all of the devices, but at least the majority, right? For example, some of them are going to use Samsung, LG, some of them are going to use iPhones, Lanix, I don't know, like Huawei, and we have like tons of brands. So you have to take into consideration that, right? If the devices are going to use certain app, is that app available for all of the softwares? For example, some of the apps are only available on iOS, and some of them they don't have on Android, and vice versa. Also, you have to take into consideration netiquette rules. What is netiquette rules? I don't know if you have seen that before. It's like the rules of etiquette. Remember that those ones like don't put your elbows on over the over the table. Don't talk while you're cheating, right? Or cheating, chewing. Sorry. So you have to take into consideration the rules of like how they are going to behave while using technology, right? So you have to explain that we have to have a certain time to use the mobile devices. As soon as the time's up, they're not allowed to use the smartphones again. I mean, because I mean, we all agree that smartphones for kids are like candies, right? They get really hyperactive and they want to like do many things. So you have to be conscious about it, right? Also, expect the unexpected, right? Think about all the possibilities that you could have, right? Even the most crazy ones, right? Also, the last one, technology is still a tool, right? Don't think or don't rely that the app is going to work alone. So you have to work and you have to walk through the classroom while your students are using smartphones. Why? You know why, right? Because it's easier with just a click. They can turn their projects instead of working with their projects. They're like using WhatsApp or Facebook for another reasons, right? Um, Now, best practices. Okay, these are the the things that I have done and they work. And I share with you my experience and my knowledge about it, right? Lesson plan. Some of the teachers on the chat says, you have to tell your teachers, yes, but also teachers, please, lesson plan, okay? So if you're going to use smartphones, it has to have the information on your lesson plan. Why? Imagine there is like a problem and you could be affected by using the smartphones. So if you didn't put it on your lesson plan and tell your coordinator or your principal, yeah, you could be in like in problems. So my recommendation, lesson plan, okay? Why I'm using the smartphones, what is the goal of using the smartphones, my objectives of the class, etc. I mean, all the information, okay? Also, think about possible problems and possible solutions. I know this one should be in the lesson plan, right, as part of the lesson plan, but I put it like in a different as a different topic because you have to think about what could happen if, let's say, I have 20 students and the 20 agree they're going to bring their cell phone. The reality, only 6 of my students brought a cell phone. So you have to take that into consideration. What happened if the internet failed that day? What happened if there is, I don't know, instead of having 2 hours today, you could have like probably 1 hour today because they're gonna have like an activity. So you have to think about those possible problems and the real possible solutions. Okay. The next one is be humble, but you are the one in charge. And this one applies on not only for teachers, applies for coordinators and principals. Okay, let's face it. When you're working with students, the majority of the time you see that you have like really smart kids, and they know many apps. They're really smart. They could fix any issue that you have in just 5 seconds, right? So that in that case, my recommendations be humble. I mean, accept their opinions, accept their participation, right? So let them help you. I mean, it's fine. I mean, it's not any problem. But you're the one in charge. That doesn't mean that kid is the teacher. I mean, you are the teacher. So you are the one who's in control of the class, right? Always. Also, be creative. Okay, think about all the possibilities you can do with with their devices. What can they do? I mean, if I don't have internet, but they have a video camera, what can I do with that? Right? I mean, think about. I mean, remember that we as a teachers we take advantage of all technology, all new ideas in order to take them and put it in class, right? So you can see, for example, all the educational models, educational platforms. I mean, at the beginning, the idea for those materials, they were intended for another thing, and now we use it in our classrooms, right? So think about, you have to be very creative about that. Also, be flexible. What happens if your students couldn't finish their work, right, or their assignment? So you have to be very flexible, right? And praise your students. Like if they in some one like they could achieve some of the goals, I mean it's fine. I mean don't be so restrictive, okay? Also, the best of the best, right? Relax and be patient because no matter as you think that students know everything and they know how to use all technology, believe me. I mean, there is always some students that are like, oh, like makes you crazy, right? So you have to think like, okay, let's be patient, sit with your students, and repeat and repeat and repeat and explain as long as it's necessary, right? Also, smart goals, and I put the smart goals here in the on the screen. So when you're thinking about the goals on your class, especially especially using smartphones, remember, your goals have to be very specific. What are your students are going to achieve? Okay, measurable. So how can I measure that they said? I mean, they reach that goal. Achievable. I mean, they you have to create projects that your students could achieve. Okay, could be easy to. I mean, not so simple, but not so difficult, right? They have to be very realistic. Okay, so if I don't have internet, okay, so let's not dream. Don't dream like without using. I mean, if you don't have internet, let's face it. Let's be real. So what can I do, right? So I have to have goals that are really real and timely, right? Give yourself time, but set a deadline. Okay, so when you're talking about your goals of the class, you have to take into consideration that your students, uh, like they have to have like a certain time. I mean, you don't have 40 hours class. Probably if you're in elementary school, yes, teacher, sorry, yes, you could have it, right? But for example, if you're working in secondary or in high school, you have how many hours? 3, 4, 5 hours per week if you're lucky. So the idea is uh, be very like specific on that. Also, be careful on your instructions. When you set instructions, they have to be very simple and very what does it say? Like less is more, or I don't know. I don't remember the quote, right? So you have to be very specific, okay? Be careful in your instructions, especially if you're working with centennials. Centennials don't work with longer instructions, right? So, for example, as an adult, if you give me 20 steps, probably I will follow 20, 18 or 16 of them, right? So if you set like 20 instructions for your kids, they're gonna be lost. So try to like set like 4 or 5 instructions and be simple, right? And be careful, okay? Take into consideration those instructions have to help your students to be independent. That's the idea, okay? Also, be open to students' creativity and let them take decisions, okay? Why? Because sometimes you in your lesson on your lesson plan you have an idea, but suddenly in the classroom, and I have seen that a lot, that your students have like, teacher, why don't we do this? And teacher, why don't we create instead of a video, we create a cartoon? You know, I have an app that I can use like so I can create my own cartoon. Like, yeah, why not? I mean, if at the end they reach the goal, why not? I mean, and let them take decisions, okay? Try to be kind of like try to be democratic, okay? Because I mean, nowadays students they want to take control. So in a way, you have to like let them take those decisions also as well. That's like I said before, set rules and help them organize their work. Okay, you have to set rules. I mean, they have to know that they are free to take any decision, but you're not free of the consequences of those decisions. So if you misuse the smartphone, you have you have uh, you have to take you have to face some issues with that, right? So if you don't do it, you have less points, or maybe I could talk with your parents. Okay, I don't know, right? And also help them to organize their work because they're kind of like disruptive. Okay, so then expect that they're really well organized and they know, they go from A and then they go from B and C. No, no, no. Believe me. So you have to be very close to them. Okay, so you will see that as soon as they're like used to work with technology, they will need you a little bit less, right? And finally, reflect. Okay, reflect always. I mean, you will see that from class to class, you have a different atmosphere, right? You have a different environment. So you will see that some of the classes are really high connected. I mean, they're really super enthusiastic about using technology. And you will see, on the contrary, right, on other classes, that they don't like technology. I mean, it's fine, but you have to reflect about it. And also ask your students for feedback. This is really, really important, okay? When you're using technology, ask create like surveys or questionnaires. How do they feel about using smartphones in the class? What happened? uh, do they feel frustrated? Do they feel happy about it? What problems or issues they face while they were using smartphones? Because not everything is perfect and beautiful, right? You will see that. And these are my best practices. Obviously we have more. Probably you can have more ideas about it, teachers. So let me check about the chat. Let's see. making decisions with them. Yes, according to point of view, we do not need to make lesson plans because not all students learn a second language in the same way. Yes, but no, right? I mean, I agree with you. I mean, not all of the students learn the same way, but lesson plan is a lesson plan. If you have a lesson plan, if you have your goals, believe me, you have a clear idea of what are you going to do, right? Um, physically with our students, since we cannot be physically with our students, what app or e-pages, videos, etc. can I tell them to consult for homeschooling? Okay, we will see that in a moment. Yes. What about the rules at home? Yes, you have to work with that. I mean, I don't, I'm not telling you that um, parents uh, are going to be like super enthusiastic as well as you, okay? They're not sometimes have the same ideas or same rules. So yes, take it that into consideration. If you have any kid that it's really problematic, I should pay attention to that, right? Probably instead of working alone, probably he works in a team. So he can contribute but without let them let those kids like working by themselves. Um, okay, is there an application for students that join with lines on matching things? Matching things? Yes, we have some apps. Depends on the activities you're thinking. Taking consideration that we're in quarantine, can you focus on that and how, for example, elementary and preschoolers are really not allowed to use that kind of technology? Okay, in the classroom, yes, yes. I mean, I know it's when you're working with kindergarten and elementary schools. I mean, elementary could be like a little bit different from fourth grade, where like some of parents allow their kids to have access. But when you have minors, yes, you can use technology. But the idea is like thinking about like, for example, you can use your own laptop, or for example, bring a tablet, so or a couple of tablets. So you gather your students in teams, so they cannot, I don't know, like they have to watch a video. Okay, after the video, they have to you have to collect all the information from your students, right? Ask them and elicit what they learn about the video or etc. Right? So, I mean, you can use it, but you have to be like I told you before. You have to be very creative when you're working with, like, for example, in my private school nowadays that we're working on quarantine. I'm working with video conferences like these ones, and believe me, I don't know. I'm really shocked. Our students like I'm talking about children, okay, like from they're like from 6 to 10 years, like 11, 6 to 11 years old. I mean, they love video conferences. You don't know how. I mean, they really love video conference, and they're really enthusiastic, and when the class is over, they're like, come on, teacher. So I never saw that before. So now with that we have video conferences, they love video conferences, and they love playing Kahoot and the other stuff. And now working with adults and high school students that I have in other classes, they don't like. I mean, they like, but they're kind of like shy. So I see now that video conferences for centennials is something really different for them, right? I mean, for us as an adults, I mean, we're like kind of like shy. We don't talk. We don't want to talk. I don't want to. Put myself on the spot, but kids, I mean, they're completely different, right? Okay, let's continue with the presentation. So we're gonna check, and this one, I need you to work, okay? So we have these cases, okay? This is how are we going to work, okay? And obviously, remember, we don't have a lot of time because we have around 30 minutes, so we have to finish the presentation. So we have these six cases. So what I want you to do is pick one case, okay? So what I want you to do is pick one case And on the chat, you have to give me ideas. This is like, don't think about we don't have internet. Don't think about my students don't have access to technology. I mean, negative, all the negative, all the possible negative or possible problems that you have, forget about it. Okay, think about the positive way. Okay, think about, imagine that you have good students, you have internet, you have all of your students have devices. I mean, think about it. Okay, okay, think about, for example, these 6 cases, and how can you use their smartphones or tablets, and how can you use them in class. For example, the first case says, 1, in a class, students need to create a science experiment. So what can they do? Okay. The second case, students are going to demonstrate their knowledge about climate change. Okay. 3, students need to collect plants and insects they found in their school and show their findings. 4, students will explain the effects of the Second World War. Okay. 5, the end of the semester is in 2 weeks and your students need to practice. Okay. And the last one, the school decides that students need to improve in their reading comprehension. Okay. So you have these 6 cases. So what can we do? Okay. What I want you to do is pick one, and on the chat, just write like 4. Okay. And give me one idea where you can use cell phones in order to solve this issue, this problem. Okay. So let me check your comments. Oof. Kahoot, yes. Ed puzzle quizzes, yes. Oh, wow. I will check that. Everyone loves video conferences, but there's a problem when students don't have both the internet connection or laptops. Yes. But remember, video conferences nowadays, they use it on their smartphones. Remember Skype, Zoom, and Google Hangouts, Google Meet. You can have them through apps. Okay. 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 So remember, what is the idea in this one is you have to select one case and write number 1 or number 2, and what ideas do you have in order to solve the issue, solve this problem, but using smartphones or using iPads or tablets. I mean, for example, in a class, students need to create a science experiment. What can you do, right? So, for example, instead of developing creating the experiment at school, where probably you will have problems because you don't have enough space, or I don't know, they can spill products on your classroom. Okay, they can create a video. I do it with my students all of the time, right? For example, instead of bringing the experiments to class, what I do with my students is they create the videos at home. So they record their videos at home, and they have, I mean, with the help obviously of the parents, and they're like making the videos like video tutorials. I mean, believe me, they're really creative doing that. So they create their own videos about how to, I mean, the materials they use, the instructions to do the experiment, and they create a video and they send it to me. So they send it to me by Edmodo, or they send it to me by WhatsApp. Depends on the on each class, right? So that's what I do, right? So the second one, remember, students are going to demonstrate their knowledge about climate change. Uh, so what ideas do you have? Let me check. Let me check. Sorry. Improve reading comprehension. Number 6. Easy to all the students can get a specific book even if there is not in the class. Yes, perfectly, Jani, right? Yes. For example, sometimes we have reading comprehension, and sometimes, for example, it happens with my kid. My son, he was one of his tasks nowadays that we're like in quarantine, he has to read, but he doesn't like his reading materials from school. So what we do is we help them to read about, for example, instructions of his um, favorite video games, or read instructions on how to build a machine. So he was like kind of like, oh my god, I couldn't. Like he was like so excited about reading the materials that he has a connection with, right? In case one, I ask students to record a video, just like me, yes. Showing the materials, the process, and the conclusions, yes. They use their cell phones to do it. They made amazing things. Yes, I agree, Faye. Erika, number 3, they're going to make a video explaining each of their findings with a short description for each of them. Yes. And remember, to make videos, sometimes you don't use, you don't need the internet. You will see that in a moment. Microsoft has been working with new technology to create a massive global collaboration groups. Yes, I will give you those. At the end, talking about tech, my computer suddenly stopped working, but I'm back. Oh, very good, Nefty. Anonymous, maybe do you have a model of a lesson plan for this emergency? My coordinator tell my use must. Okay, in those case, I suggest you to Google them. There is a web page says it's Family Tech, and also you can find information on. Oh, I suggest you to Google on the British Council. There is also David ESL Cafe. Let me check here. So British Council. In British Council, we have information about it. You have on David ESL Cafe. It's an old website, but it's really give you good ideas and lesson plan. Also, if you want lesson plans, check on Nick. I don't know if his last name is Nick Pichi or something like that. I forgot his last name. But this guy is really fantastic, and he has tons of ideas and lesson plans, sometimes for free. Also, I recommend you to use the website Teachers Pay Teachers. Fantastic. You will we will see a lot of lesson plans and ideas how to use nowadays how to use technology, right? So I would suggest you to look on those ones. Case 3, students take pictures with their cell phones and they make slides using a free app like Google Slides. Perfect. And share the slides with a shareable link into a WhatsApp group so every student in class can access in their own devices. Perfect. Yes, I agree. Case 1, ask students to record a video. Yes. With ensure they can record their voices in the video. Yes. On number 4, Educa Play gives you a variety of activities that can be used to reinforce. Yes, remember, think about how can I achieve those goals by using the apps, right? Number 2, Gabriel says students might use the app whether on their smart devices to deduce the temperature while putting the devices close to a place where there are different types of temperature, and they can record themselves during performing such activity. Yes, Gabriel, I agree with you. I mean, you have to let your students explore. I mean, you're just like a guide. You just give them like ideas, but believe me, the rest of the work they do it by themselves. They don't need you, right? Number 3, for example, is a project for the 4th grade students can use the Class Dojo platform so they can share the photos they took on the board. Yes, yes, Class Dojo. We will see it later. We've established to set the of readings according to the level they're into. Yes. 5, they could make as Eugenia from. What's this? Okay, Eugenia says number 5, they could make a role play using all the topics they have learned. Yes. Maria Piedad says, what do you think about working with cell phones when you have students with special needs like ADHD, dyslexia, or autism? Well, according with my experience, I mean, I'm not a psychologist, but I have seen that using technology with students who have special needs, it's fantastic. For example, I had experience to work with a student who has blind issue. So he just like had like the potential of 20% of his eyes. So most of his class he was like reading all my instructions through his cell phone. So we had a connection only with him through the cell phone, and he was allowed to take pictures and check them with the cell phone also as well. I had students that they have like special needs, and remember like the majority have like really good experience using technology, using music, allow them to use listen their favorite music with their earphones, so it's really fantastic. um, the thing is like it's really three, make a video collecting the insects. Yes. Plants, a very experience. Yes. Nifty, instead of copying from the board, students can take a photo from the board and edit it and underline important info. Yes, Nifty. Yes, totally agree. Yes, because it's not only about taking pictures. Because if you take pictures, I mean, according to the specialist, says that if they don't take notes, they will forget. But yes, I haven't seen that, but yes, instead of like, just only taking pictures, probably like they can edit, right? Or they can use like apps so they can write it down on their cell phones. So they have like a real connection. Instead of using the notebooks, use the cell phones. Teacher corner, yes. What is your recommendation for classes? Kids to be using at the same time technology for the class? Okay, let me check, Luis. Mariani, thanks for your tips. Can you explain more about the apps that you suggest? Yeah, I will see it in a moment. In the World War II, they could research information online. That's the idea. Then have them create a WW2 on paper so they can proofread. Yes. I wanted to add the lesson plans for me. Teachers must go to. We're prepared. Okay. Okay, we will see it in a moment. Karina, they can create stories similar to Instagram. Yes, Instagram. Perfect. Yes. Hello from Ecuador. Anonymous. I will choose number two. Students will prepare a survey to ask each other and share ideas in a chat from home. Yes. Oh, very good. You see, like you see that technology is not difficult to use, but you have to be very creative, okay? And relax. If something fails, it's okay, right? Would you like to give us some free apps that we can use with our students? Yes. Okay. What was the app of the slides, please? Of the slides, I will suggest you to use Google Slides. So it's really easy and simple. And believe me, PowerPoint is something from the past. Okay, Elizabeth, they can use Anki app to practice terms, vocabulary. Yes, Nancy, thank you for sharing very important information. Thank you. Okay, for example, Anonymous says, how can we teach our students if they refuse to listen in English? They want translations in everything, and the children's parents have difficulty in understanding tasks from home. Okay, in that case, for example, I suggest you to use blogs where you set instructions for the parents. This is very important, and I always talk with the parents about it. Okay, you want me, and I talk with the school and the school authorities as well. You want me to use technology, right? You want us, you want the kids to use technology, but you don't want to learn and you don't want to be involved. So as well, if you want your students have better opportunities, you have to get involved into this area of technology, right? So in that case, about refusing listening, I would suggest like instructions using through the smartphone, right? So you can send them via a message, or they can have like, for example, like I use my blogs. So instead of asking me the instructions, they will see that, right? Also videos, songs, but you have to check them before, right? You will see that. We will see that in a moment. Okay, let me continue because time is running. Okay, now, but the majority of ideas really great. I mean, fantastic, right? You see that the only thing that we need is creativity. Okay, so okay, we have any comments, but we have seen it in before. Let me continue. Okay, now we're going to talk about using platforms. Okay, when you're using platforms, sorry, I suggest you to you, for example, in this case, the platforms that I recommend you is like Google Classroom, okay, which is really fantastic and it's free. Um, where you can have like a virtual classroom where they can have the materials, reading instructions, quizzes, everything you can have them, right? Also, as well, Edmodo, it's really fantastic, and also Edmodo works with an app. So I suggest you to use Edmodo as well, right? I have my own Edmodo classes, and it's just really fantastic. And I keep track with my cell phone. I also recommend you to use CISO if you're working with elementary and kindergarten, so you can have like a real connection with your with parents. So you can set tasks, activities. So you put them on your CISO classes, so you will have fantastic results, right? I'm not saying the 100% of your students and parents are going to collaborate, but the majority participate. Class Dojo as well, okay? Class Dojo not only help you to interact with your students, also it helps you to have access with the parents and your school authorities about participation, if the attendance, everything, right? Blogs. I use blogs a lot, right? My recommendation, use Blogger from Google. So it's free and you can have like a real interaction with your students and parents. I mean, it's not easy at the beginning. I mean, I have to be honest. It takes a while, but as soon as your students get used to work with blogs, believe me, it's super fantastic. YouTube. I mean, go ahead, right? I mean, start creating your own videos. I have my own channel and I create videos for my students. Okay, so I record myself and I don't know, I explain something. I use an app for that. So I record and I check it and I edit my video and then I upload it, right? So I send my students the videos so my students can check instructions, they can check everything, right? I explain a class, etc., right? So these platforms are really fantastic. Okay, now, very important. Okay, how to evaluate an app, a website, or or a resource on the internet, right? So these are my recommendations according to several books that I have seen, several websites, and also my own experience. The first one is test, like the World Health Organizations, right? So it says you have to test. I mean, okay, so before you use an app, a website, anything, you have to test. Okay, you have to check it before, always. Okay, check it with your cell phone, check with another cell phone, check with a computer, check with an iPad. Okay, so check video tutorials. Okay, they're really fantastic. On YouTube, you have millions of videos. Okay, so check them. Also, as well, nobody says that, but check the comments on the video tutorials, okay? Because sometimes, I mean, I have seen videos or tutorials, but on the comments, I have seen the problems that teachers face using an app, for example, or a website, okay? So sometimes they give you the answer there, okay? So the comments are really fantastic, okay? Check references from well-respected universities or schools, okay? So you have to check like the website or the app has like a backup from someone from a well-known university, school, publishing house like Dayton or us and SM Publishing House. We can have like okay, I recommend you, I suggest you to use this app, right? The next one, check references from users on App Store or Play Store, okay? As soon as you're deciding or you want to check, like, for example, an app, So I suggest you to read the comments of the users of that app. So instead of just downloading the app and see what's happening, you can see the comments and you can see, like, for example, the frustration or if the app works or not, right? So you will solve many issues with that. Believe me, you must read all those comments. They'll help you out a lot. The last one, set a time to try out with your students if the app or the platform works. Like I told you before with the test, right? So you have to create like a class before the class where you're going to use the the smartphone for special assignments. You have to set a time where you can solve those issues. So instead of like bring your cell phones to the next class, no, come on. You have to have like minimum like one class, right? So you can check what kind of devices are your students using. So if you're using a device that is really old or doesn't have a camera, or the camera is broken, or the microphone doesn't work, because it happens a lot, right? Especially like some of the teachers that work with rural areas. Also, if your students don't have a cell phone, probably some of your other classmates can have. So why not working in groups, right? Very good. So those are my recommendations when you're going to use an app or website or a resource on the internet. Check this one, okay, before you use them, okay? Instead of like downloading the app and right away apply it, I mean, you have to take into consideration this one, okay? This is not like I create a wall chart and I bring it to the next class. I mean, it's completely different, right? Because technology can have some issues, right? So my suggestion is like think about those issues before, right? Check tutorials. I mean, you have to be the expert, okay? I know you said I'm not the expert, okay? But there are like tons of videos, and they can show you how to use uh, those apps as well. Okay. Um, any questions so far? Let me check. Uh-huh. Which the same results with technology for big groups. Big groups depends, okay? Depends on the assignment. I suggest you, the maximum that I use is like 4 students per device, okay? Would you like to give us some free apps? Yes, I will in a moment. Let me check. Thank you for sharing important. How can we teach our students if they refuse to listen? Okay, can you help me with programs that don't need the internet? Yes, we will see that. Thanks for your explanation, Anonymous. Clark, Sistema 1 is using iPads in classroom. Yes, I never use Spanish language. If they get used to listen to translations, yes, they never going to pay attention. And you have to force them. I mean, you will see that also with technology. Even though they born with technology, sometimes they have problems with technology. You will see that. Okay. How about Zoom? Okay, yes. Schoology is a great platform you can try. Oh, thank you, Miguel. I will check that. The blog is useful for technology classes. Yes. The great support, speed up the class. Yes. Is it possible to use social websites such as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram? Oof. Um, Instagram maybe, but you have to have a different account. In those cases, social networks, I suggest you to use them in with high school students. I mean, and even they have like some issues about it, right? So I don't really recommend social website, social networks, but if you find something, it's fine. It works on tools from Google Suits. Yes, very good. Okay, what should we do to encourage students to use English outside the classroom? Yes, using an apps. Okay, you will see that in a moment. Okay, now let me continue because time is money. Okay, so you may say, for example, I know I have these tons of apps that I have here. So my recommendations, those are the apps that I have worked with. Okay, so I recommend you to use Padlet. If please teachers, because I want to continue. So if you can take a picture or a screenshot or I'll take notes. So you can keep this apps that I recommend you to use. For example, Padlet is really fantastic, so they can have interactive writing. So it's really, really amazing. Telagami. I don't know if it works right now because like um, we had some problems, but work with avatars. Avatars are really fantastic, and kids love to use avatars. Okay, Vocaro, it's really fantastic because they can record their voices, and their audios are on the cloud. So the only way to access those audios is by sharing the link, and you can, for example, ask your students to describe something or describe about the last book that they read. So this one is really fantastic. iJot and Screencastify, it's really great to create videos. Okay, so I suggest you to take a look on this one. Wallami, it's augmented reality. It's kind of like social network, so it's really fantastic. I love this one because, for example, you can create like remember the app Pokemon, right? Where you have to go with your GPS and you have to find all those monsters and catch them and etc. Okay, so this is something similar. So, for example, you can create questions so you set you take a picture on a special place. So with my GPS, so they can all the ones who have the Wallami app, they can find that hidden answer or hidden picture, and they have to answer those questions. So it's really fantastic. So especially if you're like doing rallies. Evernote is really fantastic if your students don't have like something to write on. So Evernote is really fantastic. WhatsApp or Telegram, I know they're social networks, but they're really fantastic to interact and work with students. TikTok, I know it's really new, but it's really fantastic. I have seen it and I have used not too much, but it's really fantastic and they're really fun. I mean, they create fantastic videos on TikTok. Spreaker Studio, I love this one because my students can create their own podcasts. So, for example, if you're working on creating a radio program and they have to do this one, Spreaker Studio is really fantastic. I excel, especially for this moment in this moment that your students have you don't have contact, especially with elementary and kindergarten. IXL has like it's a really good app. So parents can help you out working with that, right? Google Docs, it's really fantastic because you can have groups and then you can have like interactive writing, especially if you're working with writing assignments. QR code creator, right? So they can create QR codes, so they can create messages or working with products. There are like tons of ideas that you can use that one. Poplet and Simple Mind Mapping. I recommend you to use those ones. It's apps that you can use to create mind maps, right? Instead of like creating the old ones, so they can create their with their cell phones. Zoom, Skype, and Google Meet. So for video conferences, I recommend you to take a look on these ones. Jamboard and Sideboard for collaborative work. Okay, these are really fantastic. It's like a whiteboard where they can collaborate. It's really fantastic. Flipgrid, it's really fantastic. I suggest you to use this one. Take a look at this one. So to create video clips, images, etc. Okay. Canva also has an app, so you can create infographics, graphic design, everything that you can think about it. Okay, about graphic design. Book writing one. I don't know if this one has it in on Android, but take a look. This one is really fantastic because you can students can create their own books, online books. Fantastic. Tiny Cards and Duolingo, it's from the same company. Tiny Cards is really fantastic. So they can, for example, you can work with vocabulary. You can work with review before the class or before the exam. Okay. Duolingo is really fantastic also as well. So maybe you say, no, Duolingo is not really good for teach learning English, but it's enough. I mean, and it's free. I mean, and also you can create virtual classrooms and you can keep on track. I'm using Duolingo right now with my students, so I keep a look on the assignments. Kahoot, I don't know if you have seen this one, but it's really, I mean, they have like interactive games, and nowadays Kahoot has not um, synchronous activities. You can make asynchronous activities. It means you create the Kahoot assignment, and as long when they are ready, they can access to that Kahoot, and they can play that in their homes as well. So some of them, you can use them as well with on the distance learning, especially nowadays that we have, right? And probably perhaps in the next round of webinars, we can create a, a webinar about how to use the distance learning and with apps and platforms as well. Okay. So devices futures, really fantastic. Let me think about it. Okay. Some of the teachers says, what about if they don't have internet? No problem. You have voice recorder. You told me before, right? I mean, they can record their voices and send me an audio. I mean, that's really fantastic. With WhatsApp, super easy, right? GPS also as well. QR code reader. I mean, nowadays, I think the majority of the cell phones have the QR code reader app included in the iOS or the Android. But if not, they can download the app and it doesn't need internet. Their camera, they can take pictures and videos, a lot of things. Scanners. I mean, nowadays, I think from 2016, 17, all of the cell phones have scanners included in their own cell phones. So take into consideration those devices so they can use them without using internet, right? So we use it. We discussed this once before. So the only thing is think about all the characteristics that you have in your on your cell phones without using the internet. So any questions, my friends? Hold on, let me go to. I use Google Classroom, fantastic. Plicker cards, yes, Plicker is really fantastic. Okay, let me finish. Okay, so I will read your comments later on. So this is my biography. So we have all the information that I uploaded here in the webinar, and I also recommend you to use Google Education, Apple Education, and Microsoft Education. So you will find tons of information in how can they help you out through this uh, dilemma with using technology and smartphones in the classroom. So thank you, everyone, to attend this presentation. I hope you enjoy it as well as I did. I hope you learn and bring some ideas into your daily routines as a teacher. So here you have the survey. So probably you can see it on your chat. My name is Abraham Ruiz. The topic is using smartphones in the classroom, and you see the link here, and you have the QR code. I don't know, Adel.
Thank you, Abraham. I'm trying to share my presentation so everyone can see what's gonna happen tomorrow and on Thursday. It's tomorrow we have another interesting workshop, which is learning with songs for English teachers. 12:30, the same time that it was today, Mexico Central Time, and for Spanish teachers, it's going to be Método Global de Lectura at 11 in Mexico Central Time. And on Thursday, this is a topic you are being all asking for, which is inclusive education and classroom strategies. Very interesting. So we really expect to see you next Thursday. And another thing that I shared with you yesterday, it's about our catalog of different courses we have on our webpage, which is mx.smformacion.com. So in case you are interested in working on your professional development, not only through webinars, but with whole courses, I mean, they last several weeks, so you can choose through the different topics we have there. Please feel welcome to explore our webpage and to look for options to train yourself during these times. And well, it's 2 o'clock. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Abraham, one more time for your time and support. Stay tuned for more information. We really appreciate your time and for watching us. And I will see you tomorrow then. Thank you, Abraham. Thank you, everyone. Be safe.